Parashat Kedoshim. This parasha talks about holiness, and the meaning is the holy ones. Who are the holy ones? The Holy One, blessed is He, is talking about the children of Israel. And I subtitled this topic, this parasha this week, the true shepherd and the path to holiness. The true shepherd and the path to holiness. Who is the true shepherd? The Holy One, blessed is He, is the true shepherd. And He has given us the direction, the path to holiness, to righteousness, to faithfulness. This week, Torah reading makes a heavy demand upon us. It commands us to be holy and dedicated people, and to continually aspire to heights of holiness. Some will say that this is an important, some will say that this is an almost impossible task, and it is especially difficult, since the Torah does not define for us how it is to be achieved, but that it is only a superficial understanding of what this Torah portion is coming to teach us. Parashat Kedoshim literally means holy ones. It's a very short parashat of only 64 verses. Yet it contains some of the most fundamental commandments that Adonai commanded the people of Israel, in order for them to become and remain a holy nation, a nation of priests. Indeed, Rashi comments in his opening comment to the parasha that the commandments here were related by Moshe to the entire congregation of Israel, as the majority of the essential of the Torah depend upon them. Parashat Kedoshim detailed two main subjects. First, a list of 26 commandments that will preserve the holiness of the people of Israel. And secondly, a list of punishments for the performance of abominable practices in the realm of sexual misconduct and idol worship. There is a link or a direct link between the subject matter of the parasha Ashrimot and the parasha Kedoshim, and in most years the two parasha or the two parashot are read together on Shabbat as a double parasha. In this parasha reading, there appear a large amount, in fact, a plethora of commandments. At first glance, one could mistakenly believe that this is nothing more than a jumble of laws thrown together almost at random, without any discernible pattern or overall construction. But upon careful examination, one will come to realize that it is this wide variety of seemingly unconnected commandments and laws that form the ladder upon which one can ascend to the level of holiness demanded from us by the opening verse of this reading. What am I trying to say with all this? I'm trying to tell us that as the Lord said that He is holy, so shall we, His children, be holy. That these laws that God has given us here, in the first glance, if looking at it, you think that these laws are just like jumbo mumbo. You know, everything is just thrown together as if you want to prepare a soup. Every ingredient thrown in all directions. That this doesn't make sense. Where at the pattern, everything is like disorganized. But I want you to understand according to what the Torah said, that the Lord is not a master of confusion. There is a pattern. If you look very deeply into it, you will see that it's a pattern. There is a way. There is a design mechanism by which God has given us this commandment. Remember, my people, that this commandment is not for God. He doesn't need it. This commandment is for me and for you. In order for us to be able to live peaceably. In order for us to be able to reach a higher standard. In order for us not to be like the nation of the land in which we are about to enter. Not to be like those people of the world. Because they have their own way of thinking and their own way of understanding. And the Holy One, blessed be He, is giving us a revelation that we should not be like them. That we should be the light to the world. The light to those who are in darkness. So that when they see our way of life, when they see the way we act, and when they see our action, they will say, indeed, these people are the people of God. That these people are different. That these people are not like us. That their way of life, their understanding, their action is actually completely different from our own. And they can be attracted into or onto our God. Every phase of human life is covered by this very long list of do and don't. They refer to personal behavior, the intimacy of marriage, and the raising of children, commercial enterprise, and all types of interaction between human beings. In fact, we are commanded to be holy in the marketplace as well as we are in the synagogue, and on a mundane weekday as we are on Yom Kippur. This commandment comprises all aspects of human life. You know, some of us will come to the synagogue and we are very, very, very holy. As soon as we are coming inside the synagogue, we remove the clothes of wickedness. We remove the clothes of sin. We remove the clothes of unrighteousness. We put them at the gate. And we enter into the synagogue very holy, very good, very honest. We want to serve God. And as soon as we go out, we put on our clothes back. All the clothes of sin, unrighteousness, or holiness, we put it back. And we go back again into the world. And we be the same like them. And we act and we speak. And our action has no different from them. But this parashat, Kedoshim, is telling us that shall not be. We shall not be like that. We shall be holy as we are in the synagogue. The same we shall be holy as when we are outside. We shall be holy unto our God. Anywhere we are, in any circumstances, in any situation, in any manner or in every way, we shall be holy. We will not or should not be a pretender. We pretend to be holy when we are with our God, when we are praying. But as soon as we said the last amen, we are different. We go back to our old ways. The Torah is telling us, even in our businesses, we shall be very, very, very holy. You shall not cheat a people. You shall not cheat your customers. When somebody works for you, you shall pay him his or her due wages. You shall not say because you have power over him, because you are the one that is feeding him, because you are his employer, then you can treat him anyhow. God said you shall not do that, because I am the Lord your God. You shall treat him as human being. But it is very sad in this present age, or in this century that we are, that most employers, most conglomerates, or most big businesses, they see their fellow human beings as dollars. You are just a dollar symbol. If anything happens to you, they don't care about you. They throw you out. They go and employ another person. They tell you, no. You know what? Let us industrialize everything. we are going to make robots to do everything, whereby all human beings, we are going to sack them. We don't need human beings. Because every day they go, the employer has to provide them with dentist insurance, with this insurance, with that insurance. The human being, we take vacation, we do this and that. But with a robot doesn't need a dentist. Robot doesn't need a vacation. Robot doesn't need anything. He's going to be there and work 24 hours. So why should we need these people? We don't need them. Let's remove them and do what? And employ or design a robot that is going to work for us 24 hours. Then when you sack them, are they going to feed? When you sack them, when you remove them, when you reduce all the work, or when you take all the human work and give it to the robot, are they going to survive? God said we shall not do like that. When you have a field, when you reap, you shall leave a particular part. You shall leave it. You shall not touch it. You shall leave it for the foreigners, the widows, the fatherless, those who are less privileged among you. You shall leave it for them, so that they will come and they will have food to eat. In fact, the very reason why there are so many commandments and so many laws and seemingly small details that make up Israeli life and values, because human life is covered by the perspective of the demand for holiness as a constant basic. That is the goal of Judaism. You need to understand that Judaism is not a religion, as I always said. We have religions all over the world. If I seek a religion, there are millions and thousands that I can join. But I always tell us, my people, that God does not need religion. God is not interested in religion. What God is interested in is in a relationship. Judaism is all about relationship of the creator to the creation. It's about the relationship of the creator to the people that he has created. That they should have interaction between them. And that is why he chose Israel, or that's why he chose Abraham, our forefathers. That he will have interaction between him, even far back beyond from the Garden of Eden. The book of Bereshit said, and the Lord God will descend in the evening of the day and come to see Adam, to discuss with Adam, to have interaction with Adam. It is a relationship between Adam and his creator. God never said, Adam, I'm going to give you a religion. You know, this is a religion. No. It was a relationship. And the same thing God called unto Abraham. God never said, I'm going to Abraham, I'm giving you a religion. It's a relationship. To Isaac and to Jacob, and to Israel, his servant. And the same thing, the Holy One, blessed be He, is telling us this morning. All things about Judaism is about relationship of the creator to the creation. To you and to me, that we should have interaction. And He is trying to do what? Lift us up unto Himself. The state, the level of the creator, God is lifting us up unto this level. That we should be holy. Because He is holy. That we should do that which is right and justice in the land. That we should not favor the rich over the poor. Or we should not pity the poor even when the poor is wrong. We should not pity him much. No. We should do justice in the land. We live in a society that has mostly given up on the concept of holiness and dedication and functions only in the present and for today alone. We do not see a reverence for human life any longer, especially for infant and the unborn, for any aspiration for spiritual growth at the expense of physical pleasure and leisure. There was a time when people ascribed attendance at the house of worship as being an act that could lead to holiness and spiritual development. Now, across the board of all faith in the Western world today, attendance at houses of worship has declined drastically, and the worship service itself has become one of entertainment, political correctness, guitar playing, and social activities at the best. What am I trying to tell us with this? We can see that the society that we live now has degraded onto the level of animals. Humans has become like even animals are even more better than us. Where a person will tell you, this is my right, that I have the right over my body. You are pregnant. I say, I don't want this pregnancy. I will go and abort it. You are committing a murder in the name of freedom. In the name of total freedom. That you know what? I can do whatever I want to do with my body. I will go and commit a murder. No reverence for human life. So, if you say that this is your body, if you are talking about this is my right, what about the right of the father? So the father has no right, only the woman has the right. They don't consider the father in this picture. And that is the kind of evilness that the world is telling us. And everybody is saying, haya, haya, haya. They are very happy. Total freedom. People are more interested in their physical body, understanding that this physical body will not see God. Your physical body is a manual. It's going back to where it comes from. What about your soul? What about your soul? What will be your end at the end of time? What will be the consequence of your action? Do you consider that? Or do you think about that? The house of worship or the house of God has become a mere, what you call it? A mere social activities to come and meet friends. You know what? I want to come to the synagogue because Mr. Dan is going to be in the synagogue today. Mr. Dan is my friend. I'm going to be in the synagogue because Madam Julie is going to be in the synagogue. Let them go and do blah 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 blah. We shall not backbite. We shall not warmonger in the synagogue. But we don't care about that. It's a social place to just come and sit down and meet and talk about blah 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 and go home and remain the same. Even we will even become worse than the way we come in. When the house of worship should be a place of service, a place of rendering your complete devotion to the Holy One and serving your fellow member, thinking, reflecting about your spiritual life, so that you are different from the way you come in. It is not a place of entertainment. It is not a place of whoa, yo. No. It is a place of soberness. It is a place of contrary spirit. It is a place where people break down in their soul, seeking to Teshuvah before the Lord. Let's take, for example, the following text. One must revere his mother and his father and observe my Shabbat. I am the Lord your God. By combining the mitzvot of respecting parents, the Torah begins the first of the Murray commands between both man and his fellow, the man and his creator that feed Parashat Kedushim. What is the relationship between respecting your father and your mother and the Shabbat? What is the correlation between this? Why is God telling us that we should respect our father and our mothers and then obey the Shabbat? What is the connectivity between these two? Remember that the commandment of respecting father and mother is the only commandment in the Torah that has a blessing. He said, if you respect or honor your father and your mother, your days shall be long upon the land. The same thing God is saying, if you obey my Sabbath, if you do my Sabbath, your days shall be long in the land. What is the Sabbath? The Sabbath is not just only coming to the synagogue and become holy, but when you go out, you are worse. No. The Sabbath, keeping the Sabbath, is reflecting what God has done for you. When we left the land of Israel, the holy and the strong hand of the Lord that took us out of the land of slavery, is reflecting you as God has saved you from slavery and bring you into salvation. God is taking you from the world of sin to the world of righteousness. God lifting you up from the dungeon into a path of praise. God is taking you out of death into life. That is Sabbath. Shabbat is when you reflect upon your spiritual life, upon your home that is above. You reflect upon all these things and you do justice. You do not favor your friends over none of your friends. You do not do evil in the land. A man cannot sleep with a man, but when you say that now, they tell you are a bigot. The Torah is very clear. You shall not commit all this sexual sin. But we said, no, we are in a modern world. I am free to do whatever I want to do. This is a free world. When you do this, your days will be long in the land. But when you disobey the Sabbath, but you do not see what the commandment of God is teaching us in this commandment is saying, you should not take, if you close your eyes to justice, if you place hurdle before the blind, and if you did not help the deaf, then your days will not be long in the land. Surely you will be destroyed. Surely you will go into slavery again. That is what the Holy One is telling us. But when we obey this commandment, this mitzvot, our days will be long in the land. The previous essay discussed the problem inherent in working as a shepherd. Or rather, let me just go here that, okay, Abraham said to Lot, let us not have friction between me and you, and between my headman and yours. We are brothers after all. Bereshit chapter 13 verse 8. What is Abraham trying to say? It seems to reconcile this with the fact that some of the greatest leaders of Israel people, of the Israeli people, including Moshe Rabbeinu and King David HaMelech, were shepherds before they assumed their leadership. Even more astonishing is that, as I said, it tells us their background as shepherds actually enhanced their performance as leaders of the Israeli people. How could an occupation which has such a miserable reputation produce such outstanding individual? Understand the topic. The true shepherd and the path to holiness. The greatest leader in the history of our people are shepherds. All our people, in fact, are shepherds. And understanding that this is one of the most miserable jobs in the world. This is the most kind of the lowliest of all jobs. Why is it that the people of Egypt, they don't like us because they think that we stink? These people, they are shepherds. The lowliest of all jobs, you know. Don't go near them. They stink. They are shepherds. They go to the forest for days. They don't take shower. They don't take bath. They stink. Fool. You know, we the Egyptians are civilized. We are educated. In fact, the first university in the world was in Alexandria in Egypt, where all the Europeans come to study. Even though the greatest mind of Europe, of Greek, they came to study in Alexandria in Egypt. I have a PhD. I'm a doctor of philosophy. I don't deal with these kwa people. But out of this job, out of this profession came the greatest man, the greatest leaders of all. Why is it so? If you, as a shepherd, is ready to sacrifice self-sacrifice yourself for the sheep, an animal, how much more human beings? Remember the work of a shepherd. He leads the sheep into the desert. This is a work of integrity. This is a work of love, pure kindness. Even though our sages say that Moshe does not take his sheep to other people's properties, because it is a sin for you to take your sheep to go and feed on the private properties. You can do that. If your brother plant a yard, you cannot look here and look there and say, oh, there's nobody. I take all my sheep. Let all my sheep come and eat all his crops. If your sheep and your goat or your ram or your cow eat all the crop of your brother, what is your brother going to eat? So you take your flocks to the desert, to the empty place, empty land, where nobody owns, and feed them there. It's demanding, it's tough, it's hard. But because of the love that you have for your brother, you protect your brother's land and you take your flocks outside to go and feed them, because you love your flocks, you love your sheep. And so therefore, you obey the commandment. You do not destroy the crops of your brothers. You do justice in the land. You love your sheep. You take care of them. Any wolf, any lion that wants to come and take them, you defend them, even though with your life. How much more human beings? When you become a leader or a shepherd of humans, you will do even more. We can see in the Torah the self-sacrifice of Moshe. He said, Lord God, if you will not forgive these people, if you will not blot out their iniquity, remove my name from the book of life. Take out my name from the book of life. But save them, keep them, let them be alive. Because what will the other nations say? They will say, oh, you took them out of the land of Egypt to destroy them in the wilderness. You take them out of the land of Egypt to suffer them, to consume them. God, if you will not forgive their iniquity, remove my name from the book of life. And God said, no. He who commits sin, his name will be removed from the book of life. God is a God of justice. Moses is ready to give himself up for the sake of his people. Both Moshe Rabbeinu and King David were meticulous about grazing their sheep only on inhabited desert land where none of the pasture area was privately owned. By doing so, they were able to avoid the basic halakhic pitfall of shepherding. These practices demonstrate that there are traits of absolute integrity, which is a fundamental necessity for someone in a leadership role. It was because of both the care that they show to their flocks and the honesty they display while tending them that they eventually merited to become the leader of the people of Israel. The very end of Kedoshim clearly explained the concept of holiness as the means for being separate from the other nations. Three basic formats of Kedoshim of holiness exist. 1. Time. Second, a place. And thirdly, the person. Ashmore began by presenting the ultimate integration of the three in the person of the Kohen Gadol, entering the holies of holy on Yom Kippur. The end of Kedoshim state that Israel, which is the place, and Bnei Israel, which is the person, and the time in general, are intended to reflect the integration of godliness into the daily life of individuals and nations. To the extent that we realize our mission as a kingdom of priests and a kingdom and the holy nation. We be the decree to such we retain the right to dwell in the land of Israel. If we keep this, if we keep the commandment and the mitzvot of the Lord our God, then we will earn the right to dwell in the land of Israel. If you obey your father and your mothers, if you respect your father and your mothers, if you reverence your father and your mothers, your days shall be long upon the land. If you keep my Shabbat, if you obey my Shabbat, if you do not discern my Shabbat, your days shall be long in the land. But if you disobey, if you do not listen, if you do not do justice, if you do not do what is right in the sight of God, surely your days shall be short upon the land. And we can see in the Haftorah, in the book of Hanabi Amos, it says, for the sins of the northern kingdom of the state of Israel, for the sin of Israel, they shall be scattered. They shall be destroyed, shall be removed to the ends of the earth. But I will not destroy them completely. A little of them shall be saved. I will bring them back into their land, and I will establish them in their land. And David, my servant, shall reign over them as king. And I will bless them, I will keep them. They will plant, and they will reap. He who plant the grape shall drink the wine. I will no longer remove them out of their land. They shall be my people, and I will be their God. Parashat Kedoshim. Shabbat Shalom.